You good?
Yeah.
Not trapped, no?
If you're a regular follower of Autocar, you'll know that this is a sort of follow-up story to something Gavin and I did a few months ago where we had the KLX and the KTM 390 Enduro. Now the reason we compared those two bikes at the time was because the prices were very similar. Both were about 3.5 lakh rupees ex-showroom. And lots of you said, where is the Xpulse 210? We didn't have the Xpulse 210 because the price difference was too big, but today things are different.
Yeah.
Gavin, why are we comparing these two bikes today?
Because Kawasaki was nice enough to localize this motorcycle finally and drop the price significantly. So now this costs about 1,80,000, which gives you a delta of about just 20,000 rupees between both motorcycles, putting them in about the same ballpark.
Absolutely, yeah.
Even though the intent I think is slightly different, but they are still pretty comparable.
The intent is different when you ride them, but I think someone who wants to just buy their first sort of off-road capable motorcycle would absolutely be considering these two things. And it reminds me that about 2 years ago, Autocar reported that Kawasaki was going to bring the KLX to India at about 2 lakh rupees. It seemed unrealistic at that point, and it's actually worked out nicely. They took their time, they brought the imported bike first, the CBU CKD model, and now they have this. It's nice to see that both these companies are giving you an option to come and explore the outdoors. You can do it on many motorcycles, but these things are right for the job and they make it a lot of fun. Now, why is this bike much cheaper? Well, there's a lot of it localized, about 90%. The chassis is now welded in-house at Kawasaki's facility. The bodywork is localized, the wheels, tires, brakes, suspension. Suspension is now by Endurance. It used to be Showa, if I'm not wrong.
In fact, it's easy to point out what's not localized, and that would be the headlamp, LCD display, and some components within the engine. Although Kawasaki hasn't confirmed with us what these are.
But this is now a largely made in India motorcycle. There are a few changes in the way it rides, and you could say that there is a small reduction in the experience compared to the import KLX. But for the price differential, man, I'm okay with this. It's really good.
You still get 90% of bike.
Absolutely,
right?
absolutely. So let's start with the differences that you feel when you sit on the bikes. So let's show everybody what that's like. Now the interesting thing here is that there is a 31 kilo weight difference between these motorcycles. That is the same 139 kg it always used to be. This is 170 if you go for the Xpulse Pro with a few more features.
Yeah.
So why don't you show people what the seating position is like? Again, Kawasaki India has reduced suspension travel. It's gone from 240 in the front to 220 and 250 mm at the rear to 223. But they still say the seat height is the same, 880 mm. And honestly, it does feel very similar because the suspension doesn't sag, as much.
But I think shorter riders may not like that because I think that used to be an advantage for them earlier. But I like this. I like this a bit better.
Still think it's about the same as earlier, and I'm not sure how they've come up with 880 mm as the same seat height when the suspension travel is lower, but that's what they're claiming. The interesting thing is this is the most friendly 880 mm you'll ever find. When the Xpulse Dakar comes out, that seat height will be about the same, 880, 890, and that will feel like a taller bike because it's wider. So let me show you what that riding position is like. It's a lower seat, 830 mm. Unusually, it's a higher handlebar. In fact, when you park the bike side by side, you can see that the KLX bar is low, and that's one of our few ergonomic issues with that motorcycle. This is really comfortable for the road, very nice riding position. Neutral foot peg position, and for standing up as well, it's quite good. The earlier Xpulse put you far too forward over the front wheel. I didn't like that. That has been addressed quite well here, and I think standing up, we kind of prefer this bike just for
because this one doesn't really have
bar.
You're really leaning forward quite far.
Yeah. That being said, I think the side of the motorcycle has much more grip for you to use your entire boot right up your knee and grip on the KLX. So if you just invest in a better bar or risers, that will be a nicer seating position.
But on the road, jumping from the Xpulse feels like you've gotten onto a plush luxury SUV because it's just so much more comfortable. This is mainly thanks to the wider, softer and spacious seat versus the thin and hard bench you get on the KLX.
So if you are someone who's looking for something that you want to use for everything, daily commutes, highway riding, definitely the Xpulse. The KLX comes with its compromises. If you know what those compromises are and you bought the bike knowing what it's for, I think you'll be okay with it. But it's no comparison. Another aspect of daily usage, fuel tank capacity. That's 7.6,
7.6,
and it runs out of fuel really easily. You'll have to keep filling that up every 150, 180 kilometers. This is a 13-liter tank. It goes on. It's quite efficient. But what do you think of these bikes on the highway?
I think they both have their pros and cons. For me, that feels a lot more comfortable. The tall visor, which you don't like as much, helps a little bit. And the seat really helps. It's a nice, comfortable, commanding posture. Whereas over here, you're sitting up front, there's zero wind protection whatsoever. But no, I mean, it's a different experience. You really feel like you're sitting on the bike on this. Yeah. That makes you feel like you're sitting a bit more in it. But overall, I think you could do long distances on this, just not too long. This one, I could ride across states on it. I wouldn't have as much of a problem. Yeah. This one, perhaps I can ride till my favorite trail and back.
That's what it's about. So the fact that it's road legal just means it's just good enough to get you to the trail, and you don't want to do much more than that. I rode it from Pune to Mumbai, and you will either develop extremely strong sit bones or you will be in a lot of pain depending on what you go for. But that motorcycle is meant to get you to a fun place to ride, whereas this is great to get you anywhere. In fact, this is my long-term bike. I've been riding it for a few months. I love commuting on it. Great suspension. It's a really nice engine, good sound. It's a fantastic motorcycle, and highway performance, since we're on that topic, this is a little better. That bike sits in its happy space to about 90 to 100 max. Yeah. After that, it starts to feel strained. Yeah. 122, I think, is when it gears out, when it's run into the limiter in 6th. This is also quite short geared, but the top speed is higher. So you'll do about 138, 139 before you hit that limiter in 6th. Cruising speed 100 is again the upper limit. Again, it starts to feel high revving and a little.
It can pull to about 120 with ease.
But you don't want to sit at that speed.
Yeah, you don't want to sit at that speed.
So that's the thing. But this engine really reminds me of the KTM 200 in its crispness, the lovely sound that it makes. Every downshift, every blip of the throttle is like perfectly metered, and you have a great sense of control. I really like this engine.
The KLX motor in comparison is also likable, but at lower speeds within the city or in off-road riding because it has a wonderful low-end drive. There is no gear position indicator, but we didn't miss too much of it because the engine has a nice low-end pull and it doesn't need to build higher revs like the Xpulse. Hero's done a great job of reducing the need for high revs, like it was on the Charisma, which uses the same engine, but you can tell that this is more of a road-biased engine.
What do you feel about the differences between the imported spec KLX engine and this?
Like you mentioned earlier, it does feel a bit more gruff. There's slight gruffness to it. I don't mind it as much. I think it's only when I'm out on the highway that it's really noticeable. But when you're off-road, you already are dealing with so many undulations. Right. It just goes a bit unnoticed.
Yeah.
The difference in engine smoothness is a little noticeable, but Kawasaki is countering any potential concerns for reliability by offering an extended 7-year warranty on this engine and gearbox for a very low price, which takes the total coverage for these two components up to 10 years.
But it's an engine that suits the character of that motorcycle very well. But this is a better engine for overall usage.
It's just more versatile.
Yeah. Now, off-road, that's what you buy these bikes for, and in a way, what are your thoughts?
I mean, obviously it just does it better. I think it's got a lot to do with the weight, even though it's lost some travel. I like that the suspension doesn't dive as much.
Oh yeah, that's something to talk about on the road as well, right?
Yeah, it doesn't dive as much when you're braking or accelerating, it doesn't squat.
Yeah.
I think a lot of new riders don't prefer that.
In fact, the stiffer springs have improved the KLX's behavior on the road because it doesn't dive dramatically like it used to. And when you get on the brakes, it has added a layer of stability to the bike's on-road manners.
But off-road too, Rishad, in a trail like this, in fact, just right here, I brought the old KLX once upon a time. And over these rocks, I noticed with my weight, it would bottom out sometimes. Right? Not the shocks itself, but I would end up hitting the bottom.
Because it was softer.
It was softer.
Even though it had longer travel.
Yeah. Whereas this, I haven't managed to do that just yet. So I think there is...
I mean, it could be down to the situation and what rock you encountered that day, but did it happen repeatedly or one time?
It happened repeatedly.
Okay.
So I don't know if I was just pushing it too hard or what, but that happened repeatedly, and this to me felt a bit nicer. However, I do sometimes, on some occasions, I do miss a bit more travel. Maybe when you're taking
There
jumps
are some moments when you feel like, that extra 20 mm would have been nice.
Or if you hit a stone really fast, you really feel it. As opposed to the previous one, would just kind of
that one soaked in more.
Yeah, soaked in more.
That isolated you more from the terrain.
While there is a difference in how the localized suspension performs, the good news is that the essence of the bike is still intact.
Yeah.
But the way the bike behaves, the character of the motorcycle, and why I like this bike so much has not changed. Yeah. It is this light, friendly thing that you look at things and well, that's not going to be very easy, and it just trundles over it.
That's my personal experience taking both these bikes solo off-road. I realized I was a lot more comfortable with this knowing that I would fall, I'd have to recover the motorcycle myself. And I had to at some point. There was the place I entered where it was a narrow lane, there was no place to take a U-turn. And because it's so light, it's so easy to just pick up the rear wheel and move it around.
I watched you struggling turning this one a little bit more yesterday than that.
It demands a lot more fitness from you, you know.
Yeah.
I feel in that regard, this gives me the confidence to venture into the unknown alone. You know, there I feel like I may have to take a friend along with me.
So what we did, we went out playing on some trails yesterday before the shoot, just us with the camera, because I mean the cameras can't really follow you onto these trails at speed. And we did each trail twice, one on this bike and one on that bike. And the immediate thing was, man, this is just like 30-40% easier than this. And you just take it in. This does everything that the KLX is doing, at least everything that we put it through. There's a little less ground clearance. That's about 250 mm, that's 220 if I'm not wrong. But it just went everywhere. It's just that there's more work here, and you would expect that. You know, you've got more weight to deal with, you've got more inertia, the bike is getting upset a little more. There are situations where the suspension feels a little softer than that suspension, slightly less travel. But the thing that impressed me is it just did everything the KLX did, as long as you're willing to put in a little more work. When this bike first came out, I was a little disappointed. I don't think an Xpulse should weigh 170 kilos. An Xpulse should be a 150, 160 kilo sort of motorcycle.
That being said, the new Xpulse 210 has kind of changed its character. Where the old one could be defined as more of a commuter / dual sport, this one has gone more down the direction of being an ADV / dual sport. That feeling comes from the new design and the bigger tank and just the way you sit on the bike.
And for me, that's something I really like about this motorcycle. And for that matter, I think that this is one of the most impressive Indian motorcycles to come out in all of 2025, because it is this all-round capable thing that's great to commute on. You could tour on it, you can have fun off-road. And the key thing is that you may not be interested in off-road riding, but this is still a great bike to own. We know a couple of people who are not off-roaders. They just love touring, and this is a fantastic thing. Whereas with the KLX, you must have an intention to off-road. It is so focused. But when you have that intention, I think this is a far more rewarding motorcycle.
That's true.
I love the look of it. It's got new body panels all over compared to the old one. And it looks so purposeful. You get to a place like this, you put up a shot on Instagram, and you would really look at that picture and smile more than
Plus,
with
this gets a lot more attention on the road.
Oh, a lot more. Lots of people stop and ask. Yeah, especially when we're dressed like this.
Nobody really looks at that as much.
Yeah.
It really blends in.
It's a more special feeling motorcycle, but it's also much more restricted. The one thing I don't like about the India spec model is that they made the frame black. I loved that silver frame on the...
I actually don't mind it. I think I told you when I picked up the bike from you also. I don't mind it as much. I see the appeal for the silver finish, but I don't mind it.
It's just that looks so Japanese, you know, like this import spec Japanese motorcycle, and beautifully finished silver painted swing arm and frame. The black one doesn't do so much. We also had some observations on the exhaust.
Yes, so they've changed the exhaust and they've also changed the shielding for it, but this doesn't get a heat shield.
On the exhaust itself?
Yeah,
so you've got to be careful.
There's an O2 sensor now that goes right here. So Azman actually took it testing and managed to burn his finger. And even with your gloves on, you really feel it. So I don't know how safe this is for a pillion. I don't think you'd be taking a lot of pillions on this motorcycle.
Exhausts get hot, guys. I mean, it's okay.
I know, but I just feel like with that one at least, like since it's a comparison, I don't really feel it as nearly as much.
It looks more purposeful. And you got to be careful.
It looks more raw and rugged too.
But yeah, a little more shielding would have been nice. That's probably one area where they've saved some cost as well. Okay. All right, before we get to conclusion, we must talk about features, little things that you get, value for money. Again, as you would expect, the Xpulse has a lot more to offer. What are we looking at here?
ABS modes. I mean, you get 3 ABS modes over there.
And dual channel ABS.
The KLX has single channel ABS, and you can turn it off entirely by using a button on the handlebar. Although there's a particular sequence required for the button, and it's not a straightforward push. The India spec KLX also doesn't get Bluetooth connectivity, and it has a simple LCD display, while the Xpulse gives you a TFT in the top model with Bluetooth connectivity.
You got LED indicators, very old school looking bulb indicators. Again, it doesn't bother me. It's just old school Japanese.
Initially when I saw it, I didn't like it, but now it's kind of grown on me. You know, it's a bit more characterful, I feel.
Then that brings us to service costs.
Both of them get LED headlights. That one gets a daytime running light. This one just gets a standard light.
Right. Hand guards, which are nice when you're riding through thorny bushes, as we discovered yesterday. That one doesn't have them as standard. Ownership costs, another aspect where Hero has I mean, no one comes close to Hero. It just levers are like hundreds of rupees, and
So
it's
I mean,
very affordable.
We don't know the prices for this localized version just yet.
Yeah.
We have the older prices, but
Yeah.
it's gone down considerably. Those ones were very expensive for the past. But like I told you yesterday, 1,400 rupees. Okay, that's all it costs to replace everything: the mirrors, the levers, and all. Not 1,400
levers,
each,
foot levers.
just 1,400 for all of it. It's like some 100 rupees for one, 200 rupees for
Yeah.
the other. So that's, you just can't match that with the Kawasaki.
At the same time, Hero has a lot of work to do with improving its premium experience. Bikes aren't available to people to buy. Spares sometimes are a problem. They're making good motorcycles, but the whole premium experience needs to be elevated significantly. It's a big job for them, but it has to be done because they have genuinely nice motorcycles now. The customer needs to get a better feel-good factor through the buying process and living with a Hero premium product. Kawasaki, far fewer dealerships, but you know, it's a nicer place.
It's a nicer experience.
It's better that way.
With that addressed, it's time to get to the conclusion, and this is where the identities of the two bikes really come into play. The KLX is a fully road legal motorcycle, but it is very clear that while it can manage on the road, it was built to excel off-road.
I think mainly because of that, it really narrows it down to just mostly an off-road motorcycle that can occasionally commute. You know, you won't be as comfortable, but for that I feel like you would have to compromise a little bit off-road, but on a daily basis that just seems awesome. Like, it makes your commute so much better. It really, I remember the first time I rode it, it really reminded me of the Himalayan in some
In the
way.
suspension,
Yeah,
the
in
way it soaks in,
so
yeah.
It really does that. It is quite comfortable. It makes your commutes a lot easier, and it actually edges you on to push yourself a bit harder. The moment I see a bad road on the Xpulse, I'm not phased anymore.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, okay.
It's good fun. Yeah,
it's
bring
good
it on.
fun. On this, not so much, but the moment I take it off-road, the lightness is where it really kicks
Look,
in.
I think it's also important to understand how Kawasaki is positioning this bike. They're not telling you it's an all-rounder. They're not telling you it's a do-it-all motorcycle. And in that sense, this is a fantastic one bike in your garage motorcycle. This is a fantastic second bike in your garage motorcycle. That is the key thing to understand here if you're tempted between these two bikes. You've got to have an appetite and a desire to go off-roading. And off-roading does not mean big jumps and slides and cool riding. It's exploring the outdoors, riding with a few friends, seeing what things are like. And it is so rewarding to do that on that motorcycle. I also have to think about the 390 Enduro. We rode the export spec model on some of these similar trails, and very capable, but definitely more work than this. More work in the managing the weight, more work in the engine's desire for more revs. Not much happening below 3000 RPM. You've got to keep it on the boil. When you rev it, it's spinning up and it's this wild thing. This is just peaceful. So if you're someone who's tempted, who wants to learn about off-roading, who wants to get into it, nothing is better than this motorcycle. You will outgrow it. But it's a fantastic starting point, and I would have this and maybe a classic 350 or a normal motorcycle for daily use for the price of a 390 Enduro. So you've got a 2-bike garage. I think of it that way. There's also the appeal of the KTM's road usability. We were just discussing what a lovely road bike it is. So they're all offering you a different nuanced experience between the 390 Enduro, between this and between this. They're all quite different.
So with all of that considered, it's time to wrap this story up. And I think the easiest, simplest way to put it is that the Xpulse is undoubtedly the winner if you're looking for that one bike to do it all. Whereas the KLX is absolutely the way to go if you're looking for a second bike that's just meant to be a fun off-road plaything.